Hey friends, welcome to another video. I hope you're having a beautiful day, and in this one I'm going to be showing you 5 vegan breakfast recipes that are nourishing and delicious, and let's be real, you can have them any time of the day. We're going to start off with the chickpea omelet, move on to some lentil tacos, make a eggs Benedict, and then stuff some sweet potato with a quick jam, and then make a breakfast brownie, because what better way to start the day, am I right? If you try any of these recipes, make sure to let me know down in the comments, as well as hit that like button and that subscribe button, because it truly supports my channel. And without further ado, let's dive into it. To start out this week, I made a chickpea omelet with some tempeh bacon. This one has a lot of protein, so it's a beautiful way to start the day. To get going on this, what we're going to do is chop up some veggies. You can chop up whatever veggies your heart desires in an omelet, but for me, that was dicing up some red onion and some red pepper as well. And then I decided to add some mushrooms, but instead of just brown button mushrooms, I had some shiitake mushrooms, so that's what I did. If you love mushrooms, do whatever mushroom your heart desires. Truly, it's up to you. And then to get started on our tempeh bacon, I sliced up my tempeh, half a block of tempeh to be exact, added it to my bowl along with a tablespoon worth of tamari, half a teaspoon worth of smoked paprika, half a teaspoon of onion powder, and a teaspoon worth of maple syrup. I gave everything a really good toss to make sure all of the tempeh was coated, and then I let it sit aside while I was doing everything else for about 20 minutes or so. Feel free to go a little bit shorter and or do this the night before and make it extra delicious. We're now just going to move on to frying up our veggies, so I added a teaspoon worth of oil to my hot pan, letting my veggies saute for a minute or two, adding some salt and pepper to them, and then I'm going to let them cook until they're almost fully cooked, but not quite, simply because they are going to cook a little bit longer within the chickpea omelet, and I don't want them to be extremely mushy. After that, I added them to a plate and then added my brown mushrooms? Shiitake mushrooms to my pan, along with a tablespoon worth of balsamic vinegar, let them get really deliciously caramelized, and now it's time to make our omelet batter. I added half a cup of chickpea flour along with half a teaspoon worth of baking powder just to give it a little bit extra rise, a pinch of salt, and then a tablespoon plus a little bit more of nutritional yeast. I made sure that was all combined with a whisk, making sure there's no lumps in it, and then added half a cup of water. I'm going to make sure everything is super well combined. That way I'm not getting a bite of raw chickpea flour or anything, because that's just gross. And to de-caramelize and get all of the balsamic vinegar off my pan, I just added a little bit of water and then wiped it clean, added a little bit of oil, and then my batter. I have my pan on low-medium heat here just to make sure that the omelet doesn't burn before I get all of my other veggies in there. So I'm adding all of my veggies along with some spinach as well. And then what I'm going to do is throw a lid on this and let it cook for 10 to 12 minutes. And make sure you do this in a non-stick pan and nothing else. I don't think it'd be too pretty if you tried to do it in another pan, so just beware. For the tempeh bacon, I just threw it into the pan right after I had the chickpea omelet out of there, and it only took about 4 to 5 minutes to caramelize up. For some extra fats, this is totally optional. I added half of an avocado and then sprinkled it with some chives just to make it extra pretty. And there we go, a very easy, delicious, full of protein and nourishment chickpea omelet.
Ranging from a movie scene to made of people in my dreams.
Moving on to another savory breakfast, we got some lentil tacos. This one can be made for lunch or for dinner, whatever your heart desires. But to start off, I'm going to add some oil to a hot pan along with half of a diced onion and 1 clove of garlic. Let them saute for a minute or two and then added my lentils. All I did for these lentils is add them to a bowl with some hot water and let them soak for about 20 minutes. Strain them and then threw them into this pan along with some cumin, smoked paprika, oregano, salt, and some chili flakes as well. Gave everything a really good stir and then added a 1/4 cup of some vegetable broth. I also added half a tablespoon worth of some butter just to give it an extra little bit of creaminess and some fattiness in here too. Mixed everything in until the butter was melted and then covered it with a lid and let it cook for about 8 minutes. After that, I added a little bit of maple syrup just to kind of balance the flavors out, and it really added a nice subtle sweetness that I thought the lentils really needed. So I warmed up some corn tortillas. All I did to warm them up was throw them into the toaster on the lowest heat setting and the lowest amount of time that you can possibly do in your toaster. That way you're just warming them up and you're not making them crispy. I then added my lentils to my tacos along with some corn. All I did was heat this corn up. It was frozen and I heated it up until it wasn't frozen anymore. Added some tomatoes and our guacamole. And to make this very simple guacamole, all I did was add a couple small avocados to a bowl, mash them up, and then chop up some chives. I added those chives to my avocado along with some lime juice. Feel free to add as little or as much lime juice as you desire, and the same goes with the salt as well. I added a little bit of onion powder along with 1/8 of a teaspoon worth of cayenne just to add a little bit of a kick and wake it up. Once the guac was on my tacos, I added some lettuce and then served it with a couple lime wedges. And there we go, a super delicious and easy breakfast taco that can be made for lunch or dinner. If you're not a massive fan of lentils, you can use the same concept with the same spices with some kidney beans, some butter beans, some soybeans, or black beans if you want to. Moving on to a breakfast classic, which is Eggs Benedict. However, we're going to make it vegan because that's what we do around here. We're going to start off with a block of medium firm and or firm tofu. Give it a little press. I find it represents the texture of an egg a little bit better than soft or extra firm. We're going to cut 2 chunks of about 1 inch thick of the tofu, add it to a bowl along with some tamari, black pepper, and some salt. If you have black salt, this is where you're going to add it because it has a little bit of that sulfur taste, meaning that it's going to taste a little bit more like an egg than just regular salt. I added a 1/2 teaspoon worth of some onion powder as well. Give everything a good mix and let it sit for about 25 minutes. We're going to make our cashew sauce by adding 1/2 cup of soaked cashews along with 1/3 cup of the water that they were soaking in, 1/4 teaspoon worth of some turmeric along with some black pepper as well, and 1/8 teaspoon of some cayenne pepper just to give it a little bit of heat and wake things up. 3 tablespoons worth of nutritional yeast, 1 heaving teaspoon of Dijon mustard, and 2 teaspoons worth of apple cider vinegar. We're then going to give that a nice little mix, and I forgot to salt mine, so make sure you salt yours to taste. Now we're going to move on to our eggs. I added some oil to my pan and then added my tofu chunks to it as well. This is just on low heat. I don't want to crisp up the bottoms and or cook the hell out of it. I just want to make sure that it's fully warmed through and all the sides are nice and golden brown. It took a couple minutes on each side and then I toasted up some bread. Feel free to use a English muffin for this. However, I just wanted some gluten-free toast, so that's what I did. I added my quote-unquote eggs to my bread along with some avocado and some lettuce and some tomato as well. A classic Eggs Benedict is usually served with some ham, so if you have some vegan ham that you want to use up, definitely do that, and or have some tempeh bacon and add it to it as well. But I thought this was all I wanted and it makes the perfect Eggs Benedict in my head. I then topped everything with my cashew cream sauce and a little bit of chives, and there we go, a beautiful vegan Eggs Benedict.
I got my head out the sunroof. I'm blasting our favorite tunes. I only got one thing on my mind. You got me stuck on the thought of you. You're making me feel brand new. You're more than a sunshine in my eyes. I got my head out the sunroof.
I know a lot of us love something sweet for breakfast, so I thought I'd entertain that with a stuffed sweet potato. We're gonna make a quick jam for this, and by quick, I really mean quick. We're gonna throw in some fresh raspberries into a pot along with whatever frozen fruit. You can use all frozen fruit, you can use all fresh fruits, totally up to you. I just added some cherries to mine and then 1/4 of a lemon's juice. Gave that a really good squeeze along with a couple tablespoons worth of water. And for some extra goodness, I added a tablespoon worth of some chia seeds and then threw this onto the stove on low heat and let everything get warm and jammy. And just using the side of my spatula, I crushed up those cherries just to kind of break them down a little bit more. Once this came to a simmer, I let it sit there on the stove for a couple more minutes and then it was ready to go. So I warmed up a sweet potato that I had previously cooked the night before. And that's what I would recommend to do this recipe. Just make the sweet potato the night before, warm it up, and there you go. This is a quick and easy breakfast for you. So I added almost all of that jam to the sweet potato along with some almond butter. You can use cashew butter, tahini, peanut butter, whatever your heart desires for this. This is totally up to you. Along with some coconut chips, blueberries, and some hemp seeds too. Feel free to add some extra chia seeds, hemp seeds, flax seeds, maybe some nuts on here as well. It's totally up to you, and this can be played with a million different ways. However, the concept of a sweetly stuffed sweet potato is really damn delicious, and I highly recommend it. And honestly, I think this would be absolutely delicious as a after dinner, maybe midday sweet little pick-me-up. So have fun with it and enjoy.
Feels like a dream.
I feel like all of us wanted to get away with dessert for breakfast ever since we were little kids. So these breakfast brownies are going to do that for you. However, they're made with sweet potatoes and oats, so they're extra nourishing, but they definitely fill your sweet tooth as well. So we're going to add 1 cup of sweet potatoes to a bowl, along with a 1/4 cup of almond butter, or 4 tablespoons worth of almond butter. It's the same thing, along with a couple tablespoons worth of some coconut oil and 1/3 a cup of some maple syrup. This is our sweetness for the entire dish, along with our sweet potato. So if you feel the need to add a little bit more, definitely go for it. But I find this was the perfect amount of sweetness that I preferred for breakfast. I also added a teaspoon worth of vanilla extract and 1/4 teaspoon worth of salt, and then gave everything a really good mix until it was well combined. I'm adding 3/4 a cup of oat flour, but feel free to add a scoop of protein powder in this in replace of the 1/4 cup. So what you could do is add 1/2 cup of oat flour and then a 1/4 cup of protein powder. And then I'm adding a 1/2 cup of cocoa powder along with a teaspoon of baking soda, but we're going to put it through a strainer to sift it because cocoa powder tends to have lumps in it and we don't want a lump of cocoa powder in our brownies. So just do yourself a quick favor and sift it. Mix everything up until it's well combined. This has no gluten in it, so feel free to mix as long as your heart desires. I found that my mixture was a little bit on the dry side, so I added a couple tablespoons worth of oat milk just to kind of combat that. However, if your sweet potato is really, really wet, you may not need to add this oat milk. We're going to line a baking dish that is 9 by 6 with some oil and or parchment paper as well. Add our batter and then evenly spread it out into the dish. Your oven at this point should definitely be preheating to 325 degrees Fahrenheit, so that way by the time you're done these brownies, you can just pop them right into the oven. For some extra goodness, I'm just crushing up some pecans and some walnuts in my hands and then spreading it onto the top of the brownie. You can do whatever your heart desires with this: almonds, peanuts, or absolutely no nuts at all. I just find that the nuts add a nice little texture on top of the brownie, which I love. We're then going to pop this entire thing into the oven for about 35 minutes at 325 degrees Fahrenheit. This could take a little bit longer or a little bit shorter depending on your oven. Every oven is different, so just keep that in mind and check it every once in a while. I served a big slice of this brownie with a banana, some blueberries, and some almond butter, but add some raspberries, some cherries, have some grapes on the side. But since you are having a brownie for breakfast, make it fun, exciting, and keep it enjoyable. I'd also like to note that this recipe can be made with almond flour, rice flour, or quinoa flour. I wouldn't do something like coconut flour just because the cocoa powder is already kind of drying and we don't want to dry out the mixture more. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video and got some inspiration from it as well. If you try any of these recipes, make sure to let me know down in the comments and or snap a picture and tag me on Instagram. I'd also really appreciate it if you could hit that like button and that subscribe button because it truly supports my channel. And I hope everyone has a beautiful rest of your day, and I will see you again very, very soon for many more videos to come.